Okay. Any sound checks or anything?
No, you're good. Just remember to keep that mic in your face, Mike.
Got it.
You want to? You're gonna.
Yeah, I'll have it right
Okay.
there when it needs to be.
You're good to go whenever you want to start.
Okay, so real quick, we're not going to take any breaks, but like halfway through, I'll probably like re-announce who you are and what you're doing.
Okay.
I love that.
But
Sound.
we're good. You ready?
Yep.
Do you do fist bumps or anything?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, all right, cool.
You do today. You want a water?
Sure.
I got it.
Will you get me one, Mikey?
No. That's $2.75 for you.
What are we having a sale tonight?
Like, I don't
Thank you.
think I'm in the frame. There we go.
All right, awesome.
Okay. Should probably open it first.
Okay, whenever you want to go.
Ready?
3, 2, 1.
Welcome to HER614. I am Michael Cheney, and I am so excited about today's show because we have been talking about it on Facebook all week. I have Natalie Monaco here with me. She is the founder of Cover Made Bedding. Natalie, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
How's it going?
Going good.
How's it going in the bedding world?
It's going good. It's going good.
Okay,
Lots
awesome.
of things happening.
Lots of things happening. So one reason I'm so excited to have you here is because I'm fascinated with individuals who come up with a product or an item that enhances their life.
Mm-hmm.
I think like that's like one of the coolest things. And I don't know if you know who Sarah Blakely is. I'm sure you do, right? She's probably someone that you admire like I do.
Absolutely.
She says that everyone has at least one, maybe two billion-dollar ideas. Do you agree with that?
Sure. Absolutely.
You agree with that?
I totally agree with that.
Okay, awesome. So you developed a comforter.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us first what this product is, and then we're going to get in there and talk about how this happened and why I'm so impressed with everything you're doing.
Yeah, so basically Cover Made is a comforter that's designed to make bed making easier. It's super simple. It's a comforter that has a hidden elastic that's attached at the time of manufacturing. It keeps the covers in place. You don't feel it. You don't see it. You don't know that it's there while you're sleeping.
Right.
The elastic runs underneath the foot end of your mattress. But when you wake up in the morning, everything has stayed in place, and all you do to make the bed is pull up the top part of the comforter. It also helps with cover stealing.
Yes.
So, you're waking up cold in the middle of the night, so that's kind of an added bonus to it. But, a lot of people have told me, I wake up in the morning, I don't know what we do, but my covers are on the floor, and it's just such a big mess that I don't even make the bed.
Exactly. That
Right.
happens to me on a daily.
Right.
So you came up with this idea, and is it because your comforter was always on the floor?
Pretty much. I mean, messy, just
Right.
a messy bed every day. At the time, I was working in medical device sales, and I had a huge territory, and
Okay.
I left my house really early every morning. It was like a road warrior sales job, and I was just in that, morning rush, like whirlwind. And some days I just would look at the bed and be like, ugh, I'm not going to bother, and just like shut the bedroom door, right?
Right.
But then I'd come home at night, and I'd be like walking into my bedroom like, ooh, I don't want to see this. Like I want it to feel serene. Yeah, I want it to look good. So it was, about the aesthetics, but it was also about the ease of use. And it just dawned on me like, why have we been doing something like this is a chore that we do every day?
Exactly.
Why have we been doing it the same way for 100 and more years? Like
Right.
why hasn't there ever been any way to make it easier to save time? We have lots of products out there that save us time every day, and I just really got to thinking that there should be something out
Totally.
there.
And, a lot of the books I read or the successful people, if you will, that I follow, one of the routines they say they have established for themselves is making their bed in the morning, right? If you can make your
Absolutely.
bed in the morning, you already start the day off accomplishing something.
Right.
So I feel like your product kind of lends itself to...
Yeah, the famous speech from William McRaven.
Tell me about it. I'm not familiar with that one.
Yeah, so that went viral a few years ago, and he's a Navy SEAL.
Okay, yes.
And he was giving a speech to graduates in Texas.
Yes.
And his big takeaway and what he told them they could do, to improve their lives was just the simple task of start your day by making your bed.
Making your bed.
Because it starts your day on a productive note.
Totally.
And it kind of catapults you into this, I've done this, and now I'm moving forward with my day, and I've started off on the right foot.
Absolutely. So do you feel like you're helping people kind of create that for themselves? Like, do you see this product and this business for you as really enhancing people's lives?
I do. And the most, like, heartfelt thing for me is when I get the emails of people telling me that. I had a lady that bought a king size for herself, and then 2 weeks later she bought 2 more for her young boys, and she emailed and she said, my boys are just really like rough and tumble sleepers, and it's just like such a mess to get them to make the bed, and so I bought myself one, and then I bought both of them one.
Right.
And it's just made it so much easier even to get the kids to help make the bed, because you know what, if it's easier, they'll do
Absolutely.
it. They'll hopefully fight you less on it, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. So you had the idea, you said, listen, somebody has to fix this issue. And you said you're going to fix it. Yeah. And tell me what that's like. I mean, if someone has an idea, where do you start? How do you build the idea out?
Yeah, so the first thing I did was I looked in stores online. I went to, in stores. I went in and out of stores. And I also looked online for easy bed making products. I could not find anything.
Right.
So that's when I decided I'm going to figure this out on my own. And it kind of became an obsession for me in a way. I went to the library in Columbus, the Whetstone Library, and I got a bunch of books out on product development, patenting, and I just kind of immersed myself in them and literally read them. I mean, they're...
So you did like some good old-fashioned research where you actually got the books
I did.
out.
It's like going back to college and like I'm going to take a self-directed course on like how am I going to do this? And that's really where I learned how to build prototypes and then what to do with them, how to pitch them, how to find the people to pitch them to.
Wow. And this is why I love the topic, is because there's so much to this, right? It is, I can't imagine, it can't be easy to roll out a product, but you had the idea, so then how do you make a prototype? Like, what did that look like for you?
So it's really funny. Remember I mentioned earlier that I was in medical device sales?
Yes.
So when I was in and out of pharmacies for my job, at the time, I was looking for elastic to construct this prototype, and fabric stores didn't have wide elastic.
Okay.
And the only thing I could think of that was what I was envisioning was Ace elastic bandages.
I love that.
From the pharmacies. And so I was in on sales calls, and as I was leaving after talking to my accounts, I would buy up all these different brands of Ace bandages and different types and take them home and started testing with them. And it worked.
Wow.
I mean, I had this really shoddy prototype that, didn't look very aesthetically pleasing, but I knew it was working.
Right.
So I decided to take sewing lessons.
Okay.
And I still wasn't very good at sewing, but I was good enough to where I could build prototypes and test them myself just to test the idea.
Yes.
And I knew I'm going to need someone better at sewing than myself.
Okay.
So I went in and out of local dry cleaners and tailor shops and asked to talk to seamstresses. And I'm like, hey, I have this idea. I need someone to help me build prototypes. Can you help me with that?
Right.
Most of them were like, we don't do that. Like, this is not this kind of place. Like, can't help you. And so I just kept going, kept trying to find the right person. And finally I found a seamstress that was willing to not only build me the samples, but also like sign an NDA, which is a huge part of the process.
So I definitely want to come back to that. So when people are telling you, no, we don't really do that type of work, was it discouraging?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for me, I think because my first jobs out of college were all cold call sales, I had so much experience with that, and I knew how to sell, and I had, from that experience, like within me, I was able to understand the bigger picture. And so when people told me no, I had already gone through that so much that I was able to see, that it's just a numbers game, so
Absolutely.
to speak. Like if you can make yourself vulnerable and you can put yourself out there,
Absolutely.
and you're willing to endure that for the sake of your bigger vision, then it can all come together. But yeah, I mean, there's people, they're rude, they're they're busy, they're like, I don't know what you're talking about, and so there was a lot of that.
Yeah, it's interesting because when you're saying this, like what it kind of makes me think is that, don't you think like our experiences along the way ultimately are there to prepare us for these moments. So you had these years of experience of doing cold calls and getting told no. You were kind of used to it. Maybe you even expected to hear that in the beginning. And it kind of helped you create this thick skin so that it didn't discourage you to the point where you gave up. If anything, it might have even encouraged you to keep going because you know eventually there's going to be a yes.
Exactly.
I love it.
Exactly, yeah.
So you found a seamstress to partner with, and you said that they had to sign a non-disclosure agreement. How did you even know that you needed them to do that?
So at that point, I had already contacted a patent attorney, and I was working with her. I had filed a provisional patent application with her.
And what does what does that mean when it comes to a patent?
So it holds your place for a year. So it gives you some time in the R&D phase when you're developing your product. If you make changes during that time, you can add them.
Okay.
But it holds your place, so you are the first to invent.
So that someone else can't come in and say, oh, I've got this idea. No. It's basically holding your idea for a year, kind of?
Yes, until you do the actual utility patent.
Okay.
So it kind of gives inventors some time to protect their idea, but also work on it. And by no means am I, legal counsel, so I always would say, contact an IP attorney throughout every step of the way, which is what I did, because you do have to be careful.
Exactly. So you kind of had some guidance. You partnered with an attorney early on, which I think is smart. You got your patent up and running. Did you make many changes in the first year? Once you got the provisional patent, did you make changes to the product?
Slight
changes?
Yeah. I mean, I just learned that certain things with the construction needed to be sturdier, and the way that it was sewn and manufactured had to be done a very, very particular way, so that it would function properly on a mattress. It's not just as simple as throw an elastic on any blanket.
Exactly.
There's a lot of measurements, and there's a lot of engineering behind how it's sewn and where it's sewn and why.
That makes sense.
For it to work properly, yeah.
So this whole time, I'm assuming you were testing it out, and were you the one providing most of your feedback? Or how did you know that, these, stitches need to be in the right place? Was it because of you were testing it out, or did you have family members testing it out, or what did that look like?
It was mostly me, honestly. Yeah. I mean, I knew what I wanted it to look like and how I thought it should function. And then later on in the process, I did go through and get more formal feedback.
Sure. So what's the next step? So you find the solution, you figure out the engineering behind it. How do you actually get the product made? Where do you start on that?
So that went back to all the books I found at the library that taught me the steps in product development.
Okay.
So I started researching the NAICS database, which is an industry database, and I was looking for all possible bedding textile manufacturers. And I just started calling, emailing, sending them samples that were made by my seamstress with a pitch letter, explaining that I had this, idea.
Right.
But note, I didn't send them a sample or tell them what the idea was in the process until I had them sign an NDA.
Okay.
And that's a very hard thing.
That seems like that could be tough to navigate because you have to get them on board to sign this document, right?
Even to talk to you, yeah. So,
and how do you make that sale? How do you convince them that it's worth?
It was literally hey, I have this great idea, 1,000%. I know that this works. It's something your customers will love. I need to talk to you about it. Can I please come and have a meeting with you? But I need you to sign this first.
Exactly.
And I can't tell you what it is until you sign this. And these are VPs, these are C-level executives at, these big companies, and they're like, who is this, right?
Totally.
So when I was doing cold call sales before, I was working for an international pharmaceutical device company, and so I had that context going into my calls. With CoverMaid at the beginning, I didn't have a company.
Sure.
I was just some girl off the street, pretty much.
Totally.
So, yeah, so.
Wow. So when you are approaching these VPs, are you doing this in person or on the phone? What does that look like?
So it started with voicemail, email, getting on their company websites, finding out who was in charge, finding out who could help me and who the best person to contact would be. was, and then figuring out how to get them on the phone or email.
Right. And do you have an example of like maybe one of these meetings that didn't go well and you were like maybe devastated? Do you have any like...
I absolutely do.
Do you have one you want to share?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go for it.
So the first manufacturer that I worked with, and ironically they went on to produce CoverMade for me, the first phone call that I had with this VP at this company went terribly. He began like drilling me, and keep in mind, I'm like young, I'm green, I'm just excited about this idea.
Sure.
And I knew nothing about the textile industry. I didn't know. I just knew I had this thing that was great, and I wanted to tell them about it and share it. But so the phone call did not go well. I mean, he was literally just, very honestly condescending, like, well, how do you think you're going to market this? And what do you know about this business? And I didn't have any answers for him.
Sure.
At that time, I didn't. So I got off the phone, like you said, feeling like, oh, okay.
Totally discouraged.
And like, and then I kind of pulled myself back together, and a few weeks went by, and there was another contact within that same company that I reached out to. And the conversation went totally different.
Now, most of these VPs that you're having to contact, are they men?
Yes.
And is that common? Is the contact for you and what you were trying to accomplish, were you mostly having to deal with men?
In the manufacturing
part, side,
the cold calls were mostly men that ran textile mills.
And do you think that because you're a woman, do you think that played into their reaction at all? Do you think it helped you? Do you think it did not help you?
If I'm being completely honest,
yes.
Yeah, I don't think it helped because... And again, I'm not talking about the retail buyers. There's
Sure.
a lot of female retail buyers, but the manufacturing, that's where I ran into this issue because, it's a group of individuals that had, their company passed along to them from their fathers and grandfathers, and they had a very set way of this is how we produce comforters.
Okay.
We know what works. We don't need some girl coming in here telling us that we need to be innovative.
Right, so they're not very open to that conversation in the first place.
No.
And then you're young, you're female, and I could see how they've probably got a real hold on their company and what they're doing. And I guess you don't really think of the bedding industry being super innovative, right? Mm-hmm. Like, I don't think I normally hear those words together, bedding and innovative, until you came along. So what's next? So you finally get someone on board. You contacted someone else from the same company, and they gave you a shot, it sounds like.
Yep. So I went to their headquarters, brought my sample. They signed what I needed them to sign.
And again, this was just, you just wanted a conversation, right? Mm-hmm. You're just asking to have a sit down and show your product, and just even, approaching that and saying, hey, I just want to talk to you. You're already getting the no's. Mm-hmm. So you stuck with it. You reach out to someone else, and they invite you in. Tell me what that meeting looks like when you take your product that you made.
Yeah. So I drove there. It's big conference room. I got a box with my sample in it. And at that time, what I had done to create pitches, I didn't have any money to do photo shoots and showcase my product. And it's a very visual product. So I had a friend of my parents that had a beautiful bedroom, and I couldn't afford a studio and major photography. Right. I said, hey, can I use your bedroom? And I created a PowerPoint out of the photos that I did from that shoot, and I was able to do that for free, right? So that was my email pitch was this PowerPoint that I created from that.
Sure.
So that's how, when I would go in, I would explain the product using that as a guide.
That's amazing. In case you're tuning in right now, we're talking to Natalie Monaco from CoverMade Bedding, and you are really a go-getter because people have told you no, and you're not listening to it. You're now in front of these VPs with your own product. And how'd the meeting go? Were they receptive right away, or were they skeptical? What's the next step look like in this process?
So they ended up being my first manufacturer.
Okay, so you sold it. Your PowerPoint of your friend's parents' bedroom with the comforter,
correct,
was what they needed. So right away did they get the concept, or did they, like, what did they do? Do they need to demonstrate on their own with the product? Do they need to, what does that look like for them? Like, how do they know that your engineering behind this is worth pursuing?
Great question. Yeah. So they have their own R&D and development team that are textile experts that literally help me map out my product professionally, not just on scratch paper like I had and with my measurements and everything that were just very amateur, to put it honestly.
They loved the idea, and then at that point they're willing to put their
time,
resources behind it to help really build it out.
Correct. Yeah.
That's amazing.
And then I was able to get my first run of production with them.
And production in terms of they're actually the one making the item. And then once they make it, do they help you get it into stores? Do they help any of the marketing, or what do you do after that?
So it was mostly on me. I did a lot of it. So I started cold calling again. I would look online to find out who the home textiles buyer was for various outlets and a lot of the ones that I work with today.
Sure.
And it was as simple as, okay, the buyer from Brookstone or the buyer from Bed Bath, this is his or her name. And I would send an email to them at brookstone.com, right, with every possible combination of their first and last name and initial. I would send them a pitch until it went through.
Wow. So this is like trial and error just with an email address.
Yeah. So those were cold email pitches. And so I had done that with Brookstone for like months. And finally the buyer's assistant emailed me back and was like, we really like this. We want to talk to you. So I flew there to New Hampshire to meet with them.
That's amazing.
And that's how I got Brookstone.
So when you take a step back before you actually get the buyer, does it cost a lot? Like up to this point, I know you've kind of finagled your own, you made the comforter yourself, you kind of had to cut costs, you're taking your own pictures, but does it cost to bring on a manufacturer? Like, what does that look like? And if it does, how do you get the money to do it?
So it was really all bootstrapped. So at the time I was in sales and I was literally taking all my commissions and putting them into my company.
And did you have any outside funding in the beginning? Nothing.
No.
You did it all on your own?
Slowly, but on my own.
Sure. Yeah. And was that scary?
Sure.
That you're using your money for this product?
Yeah, but I believed in it so much, I just kept going.
You went for it. Okay, so tell us where you are today. You've gone through this whole process. You're in stores. What does it look like today for Cover-Made bedding?
So, recently we launched in colors, which was a big request from the buying partners I work with as well as end consumers. Because initially we had just produced the product in white to test it, which was the smart way to do it.
Yes.
Because you have huge minimums if you produce the product in colors. And it didn't make sense to do that until we saw how the market responded. So I was able to partner with the Brookstone, Wayfair, Bed Bath, get the product out there in white at very minimal risk and see how the market responded, and the response was great.
That's
so
amazing.
We had, requests, well, we want colors and we want more options, and that's all great, right? So that's where we're at now, is we just recently, over the past 6 months, launched in seven new colors.
Now, how did you decide on 7 colors? Is there a thought process behind that, or did you just pick lucky number 7?
I wanted, if I'm going to do this, I want to give people lots of options for decor. People want options. And I researched what colors are the most popular in the home textiles
awesome.
industry.
And then that helped develop your plan. Do you remember the first time you went into, say, Bed Bath & Beyond and saw your product?
Well, so it's online.
Okay, it's all online.
It's all online. Mm-hmm.
Well, what about when you went to that website? What is that like?
That was a very surreal thing. Yeah.
Yeah, so tell me about that. Like, what does that feel like to have a product that you created, you tested, you've gotten told no multiple times, and then lo and behold, you log on to Bed Bath & Beyond, and there it is. What does that feel like?
When I think back of how I started with safety pins and ace elastic bandages and no patent and no help, and it was, awesome.
Pretty amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and everything now is so driven towards e-commerce. That's like kind of a whole nother topic, but that's worked really well for me.
Absolutely.
And like marketing automation.
Sure. If you were going to give someone one piece of advice that has an idea for a product, what would be your advice on how to get this thing off the ground?
Be willing to be vulnerable.
That's like a huge word right now, right? I think over the last few years, we have kind of succumbed to the fact that if you really want to be authentic and do something, you have to tap into your vulnerability. Okay, that's awesome. Natalie, I'm so impressed with your story, and I'm even more impressed that you have a special deal for our listeners. Do you want to talk about what kind of discount you have for anybody tuning into this show and how they can take advantage of it?
Sure. So if you log on to covermadebedding.com, we have a code on the site for our listeners. So enter code SUNNY95 at checkout, and you will get 20% off on your order.
That's amazing. Okay, so SUNNY95 is the code. Use that on covermadebedding.com and get your discount. Natalie, how can people follow you, follow your story, follow CoverMade? Give us your social media handles.
Yeah, so on Instagram at CoverMade, at Natalie.Monaco, LinkedIn Natalie Monaco. Yeah, and we're also on Twitter as CoverMade Bedding, Facebook CoverMade Bedding.
Amazing. Thank you so much for joining us today. Can't wait to see your progress over this next year. We will definitely be following you.
Sounds good. Thank you.
All right, awesome.
You guys did a great job.
Awesome.
You got your whole story out. That like.
Well, you're good.
What I miss?
You're good.
I know I missed something.
Oh, you did a wonderful job.
Thank you.
That was really cool.
You want to wave?
Me?
Yeah. No.
About what?
About the show.
Story you have to shit, and I would always feel like it felt indulgent or something, like to talk about. But then I realized that, like, actually